Sometimes, the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise. The U.S. Roosevelt 1 dime, that tiny, silver-colored 10-cent coin that so often goes unnoticed, has a story that proves just how powerful a small mistake can be. In 1991, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes, each meant to be identical, flawless, and ordinary. Yet among those millions, a few coins slipped through with rare minting errors so extraordinary that today, they're worth far more than anyone could imagine. We're talking about coins that have sold for jaw-dropping prices from $55,520 to $138,500, turning an everyday dime into a piece of history and possibly a life-changing discovery. The 1991 Roosevelt dime might seem like just another coin, but its story begins with a combination of precision and imperfection. Each dime features the familiar profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a tribute to the 32nd President of the United States, designed by John R. Sinek in 1946. The reverse side displays a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. For decades, this design remained unchanged, a pillar of U.S. coinage. But in 1991, something unexpected happened inside the U.S. Mint that turned a small handful of these coins into legends. To understand what makes the 1991 dime so special, we need to dive into how coins are made and how things can go wrong. The process is supposed to be perfectly controlled. Metal blanks, called planchets, are fed into presses that stamp the obverse and reverse designs with enormous pressure. Each die, the engraved metal tool that imprints the design, must align with precision down to fractions of a millimeter. But when even the tiniest misalignment or mechanical error occurs, the result can be something truly unique. One of the most famous 1991 dime errors is the double die obverse, where elements of the design appear slightly duplicated. Imagine looking closely at Roosevelt's profile, the word Liberty, or the date 1991, and seeing a ghosted second image or slight shadow. That's a double die, an error that happens when the die itself shifts between impressions during its creation. These double designs are not only visually striking but also extremely valuable because they are so rare. A strong double die 1991 Roosevelt dime in pristine condition can sell for over $55,520, making it one of the most sought-after dimes of its era. Another stunning and valuable 1991 dime error is the off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet isn't correctly centered beneath the dies when the coin is struck. As a result, the design is shifted, leaving a blank crescent of metal on one side and compressing the image on the other. The more dramatic the off-center strike, and the more of the date that remains visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. A perfectly preserved example of a 1991 dime struck 50% off-center has fetched prices exceeding $60,000 at major auctions. But perhaps the most incredible and valuable error from that year is the wrong planchet error, when the dime design was accidentally struck on a metal blank meant for another denomination. For instance, a few rare 1991 Roosevelt dimes were struck on copper penny planchets instead of the usual copper-nickel dime blanks. These coins look distinctly different, lighter, with a reddish or golden hue, and slightly larger or smaller depending on the mismatch. To an untrained eye, it might just look weird, but to collectors, it's a golden ticket. A 1991 Roosevelt dime struck on a penny planchet, authenticated and certified by PCGS, once sold for an unbelievable $138,500. There are also examples of no-S-proof dimes that caused a sensation among collectors. In the early 1990s, proof coins were minted in San Francisco with a tiny S mint mark to signify their origin. However, a few rare 1991 proof dimes left the mint completely missing that S, an error that should have been impossible. These coins were discovered in special proof sets sold directly to collectors, and their discovery set off a frenzy. The no-S Roosevelt dimes are among the most famous errors in modern U.S. coinage, and while most were found in the 1980s, a few 1991 examples have surfaced. One such coin, graded PR69 Deep Cameo, sold for tens of thousands of dollars. What makes the 1991 errors so extraordinary is their rarity. The U.S. Mint's quality control had improved drastically by that time, making major mistakes uncommon. That's why finding one of these dimes feels like uncovering buried treasure. When you think about it, it's incredible. Billions of dimes produced, all nearly identical, except for a handful that, by chance, broke the mold. Those few have gone on to become priceless artifacts, each telling the story of a split-second mishap that the machines never meant to happen. Collectors love these coins not just for their rarity, but also for their stories. A perfect mint coin is a symbol of precision. An error coin is a symbol of chance. It's a reminder that even in a world designed for perfection, imperfection can be beautiful and valuable. The 1991 Roosevelt dime embodies that perfectly. Every error tells a different story. A die that slipped, a blank that didn't belong, a machine that struck twice instead of once. And each of those stories is written in metal, frozen in time, and now worth tens of thousands of dollars. Condition, as always, plays a crucial role. Coins graded in mint state, MS65 or higher, or proof condition with clear, well-defined errors command the highest prices. Collectors prize clean surfaces, strong luster, and crisp details. A 1991 dime error that might be worth a few $100s in worn condition can soar to $55,000 or more when found uncirculated. And when the coin is a true rarity, like the wrong planchet strike, its price can exceed $138,500 easily. What's fascinating is that these coins still might be out there. The 1991 dime wasn't some special commemorative issue or limited release. It was a standard coin in everyday circulation. That means that somewhere, in a drawer, a jar of old coins, or even in someone's pocket change, a fortune could still be hiding. Imagine finding a slightly off-colored dime or one with the design shifted just a bit. It's the kind of discovery that changes everything in an instant. There have been incredible stories of people stumbling upon these treasures by pure luck. A collector in Florida once found a strange-looking 1991 dime among his daily change. It looked slightly copper-colored, so he set it aside. Years later, after learning about planchet errors, he had it tested and discovered it was struck on a penny blank. That coin sold for over $100,000 at auction. Another collector in California purchased a roll of dimes from a bank, only to find one struck off-center with the date still visible. It was graded MS66 and sold for $58,000 soon after. For anyone hoping to find one of these gems, the key is paying attention. Look closely at every dime, especially those from 1991. Check the mint mark. Is it missing or doubled? Examine the edges. Are they perfectly round or slightly misshapen? Observe the color. Does it look more copper than silver? These subtle differences can make all the difference between an ordinary coin and a life-changing discovery. There's something magical about the idea that a coin worth 10 cents could be worth $138,500. It's not just about money. It's about mystery, luck, and history colliding in your hands. The Roosevelt dime has been in circulation for decades, seen by millions, used to buy candy, pay for parking, and tip at diners. Yet a few special ones carry stories of accidents that turned into legends. The 1991 Roosevelt dime reminds us that sometimes perfection isn't everything. The tiny imperfections, the rare moments when the system falters, can create something far more extraordinary. These coins are tangible proof that even in precision, there's room for magic. So, the next time you pick up a dime, especially one dated 1991, don't overlook it. Hold it up to the light. Study its surface. Check its color, its strike, its details. Because hidden among billions of ordinary coins could be one that defied the odds, one that turned a common piece of change into a treasure worth $55,520 to $138,500. That's the beauty of numismatics. The thrill of discovery, the chase for the rare, and the belief that even the smallest, most ordinary coin could hold a story worth a fortune. And maybe, just maybe, your next dime could be one of those once-in-a-lifetime finds that proves history can still be hiding in the palm of your hand. The year 2000 marked not just the beginning of a new millennium, but also the birth of one of the most fascinating stories in American coinage. A story that begins with a small, silver-colored coin most people overlook, the Roosevelt dime. For decades, it's been the quiet workhorse of U.S. change, passed from hand to hand without a second thought. But in the year 2000, something went remarkably wrong, or, depending on how you look at it, remarkably right. Because a few rare 2000 Roosevelt dimes left the U.S. Mint with shocking minting errors that turned this 10-cent coin into a treasure worth not 10 cents. Not even a few $100s, but astonishing amounts. from $49,400 all the way up to $125,500, depending on the rarity and condition. It's amazing to think that a coin so small could carry such enormous value. The Roosevelt dime has always been a symbol of precision. Designed by John R. Sinek and first released in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, it features his dignified profile on the obverse, with a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. By the year 2000, the design had been struck billions of times without issue. But this year, something changed. Somewhere in the minting process, mechanical precision gave way to imperfection, and that imperfection created history. Let's start with the most famous error of the 2000 Roosevelt dime: the double die obverse. This is one of the most dramatic types of minting errors, and it happens when the coin die, the engraved metal stamp that strikes the design, hits the planchet twice, slightly misaligned between strikes. The result? A clear doubling of the text and details. Look closely, and you might see a shadow effect on the words, "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or even on Roosevelt's face. For collectors, that doubling is pure gold. It turns a common dime into something extraordinary. Some of the strongest double die examples from the year 2000 have sold for over $49,400, and the best preserved specimens, flawless with deep doubling and bright luster, have reached that upper range of $125,500 at major auctions. Another incredible variety is the off-center strike. Imagine a dime where the design isn't centered on the coin, but pushed dramatically to one side. You'll see part of Roosevelt's portrait missing, and a blank crescent of metal on the other side. That blank space is like a window into the minting process itself. The further off-center the strike, while still keeping the date visible, the more valuable the coin becomes. A perfectly misaligned 2000 dime with 70% off-center and full date visible can command tens of thousands of dollars, and the most extreme, visually striking examples have been known to reach beyond $80,000 in pristine condition. Then there's one of the rarest and most captivating types of mint errors: the struck-on-wrong planchet error. This happens when a blank intended for another denomination accidentally finds its way into the dime press. The results can be wild. A dime struck on a penny planchet, smaller and reddish in tone, or on a foreign coin blank, giving it a completely different color or weight. One of the most remarkable 2000 Roosevelt dimes ever found was struck on a copper penny planchet, producing a reddish gold dime with an incomplete design. When this error surfaced at auction, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. After a heated bidding war, the coin sold for over $125,500, setting a record that still amazes collectors to this day. But the errors don't stop there. The 2000 Roosevelt dime also saw a number of broad strike errors, where the retaining collar, the metal ring that keeps the coin's edge intact during minting, failed to engage properly. Without that collar, the metal spreads outward when struck, giving the coin a larger, flatter, and slightly distorted appearance. It's as if the dime melted outward under pressure. Collectors love these coins for their dramatic look, and depending on the level of distortion and condition, a broad strike 2000 dime can easily sell for several $1,000s. Another error variety that fascinates collectors is the clipped planchet. This happens when the metal sheet used to punch out blanks overlaps, and one blank is cut partially over another. The result is a coin with a missing crescent-shaped section, as if someone took a bite out of it. While these errors aren't quite as high in value as double dies or wrong planchet strikes, well-defined examples from 2000 can still bring in several hundred to a few $1,000s, especially in uncirculated condition. Perhaps the most visually striking of all, though, is the missing clad layer error. Modern dimes are made of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of nickel, giving them their silvery color. But sometimes one of those outer layers fails to bond properly during production, leaving one side of the coin copper-colored and the other silvery. The two-tone effect is stunning and unmistakable. A 2000 Roosevelt dime missing one clad layer, especially if it's bright, clean, and well-preserved, can fetch anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000. And in near-perfect condition, examples have been known to surpass $60,000. One of the most legendary finds of all came from a collector who discovered an extraordinary 2000 Roosevelt dime with a combination of errors: a missing clad layer, an off-center strike, and doubling on the obverse, all on the same coin. It was a masterpiece of minting chaos. When this dime appeared at a high-end auction, experts immediately recognized its uniqueness. After a heated round of bids, it sold for a staggering $125,500, setting a new record for the year 2000 dimes. Even regular 2000 Roosevelt dimes without visible errors can be surprisingly valuable under the right conditions. Coins graded MS-68 or MS-69 full bands, a term that refers to the sharply struck horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse, are extremely rare. Most dimes leave the press with weakly defined bands, but when one shows crisp, fully separated lines, collectors go wild. These near-perfect examples can fetch anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000, and if combined with an error, the value skyrockets. So, how does a coin worth 10 cents become worth over $100,000? It's the combination of rarity, error type, and condition. A dime that's both rare and visually dramatic can be more desirable than even gold coins to the right collector. Each error tells a story. A small accident in a massive industrial process that created something unique, something no machine could ever replicate again. Imagine holding a handful of dimes and spotting something slightly off. The lettering doubled, the rim uneven, the surface two-toned. You take a closer look, maybe even grab a magnifying glass. Your heart races as you realize you might be holding a genuine mint error. That's how countless legendary finds have been made. Not by professionals, but by ordinary people who simply looked closely. Many of the record-breaking 2000 Roosevelt dime errors were found in circulation, tucked away in rolls of coins or sitting unnoticed in jars for years. The beauty of these coins lies in their unpredictability. The 2000 Roosevelt dime reminds us that even in a world of machines and precision, perfection isn't always the goal. Sometimes the greatest treasures are born from mistakes. A tiny misalignment, a slipped blank, or a missing layer of metal can turn something ordinary into a historical artifact. For collectors, that's the thrill, the chase for the next great discovery. Every dime you hold could tell a story of the mint's unseen moments, of a fraction of a second error that no one noticed until years later. And in that story lies the potential for incredible value. Perhaps $49,400, or maybe even $125,500 if you're lucky enough to find one of those nearly mythical examples. So, the next time you get change back at the store, don't just toss those dimes into a drawer. Look closely at them. Check the date, 2000. Examine Roosevelt's profile, the edges, the lettering, the torch, because that small, silver-colored coin might not just be worth 10 cents. It might be your ticket to one of the most remarkable finds in modern U.S. coin history, in a world where everything is mass-produced and identical. These rare coins remind us that imperfections still have beauty and incredible value. The 2000 Roosevelt dime is proof that even the tiniest details can transform an ordinary object into something truly extraordinary. And sometimes that little piece of metal in your pocket can be worth $49,400, or even $125,500, if you're lucky enough to find the right one.